I'm Andrew Hall, and this is Dead Hand Radio. My guest for this episode is Ryan Stacey. Ryan is a private investigator by trade and utilizes his skills and connections to investigate some of the most intriguing, in some cases frightening, incidents experienced by humans. He's an author, citizen journalist, and an active investigator of the paranormal and UFO phenomena. And tonight we're going to get into what he does, how he does it, and most importantly, why. Ryan's drive to find answers, uncover truths, and most important, help others is evident through his nonprofit organization, TESA, the Experiencer Support Association. I would also categorize Ryan as an activist and an advocate for those who've been traumatized, ridiculed, and marginalized for nothing more than having unexplained experiences, and I'm honored to have him on as my guest tonight. Welcome to Dead End Radio, Ryan.
Thank you for having me, and you would be the first person to call me an activist, so I appreciate you saying that, and I will hold on to that, and I will continue to do what I'm doing with that. Thank you.
Absolutely. I appreciate the work that you're doing, man, and I'm sure that everybody that you're helping as well appreciates it very much.
Thank you.
So you are a private investigator by trade, and how did you get into that field?
Well, I've always been interested in police work. So I originally attended training and education for policing. Throughout that, I decided to gear more towards investigations. I started to get into crime scenes and forensics and evidence retrieval, categorizing the facts. So I really like to do the whole investigative part of it. I wasn't so much into the whole running around being, doing the arrests and whatnot. However, as a side job, to put myself through training and schooling, I was a security guard. So as I did that for a while, got a blend, and then I ended up learning how to do private investigating through a company that I worked for at the time. I got the opportunity to create my own private investigating firm through that. I guess I piloted one. It didn't go as well as planned, mainly because the CEO didn't have the funding for it, but I still had the business plan, so I took that. And I was also a cook for a while, a long time. I was a professional cook that's something I probably have never said in a long time. Just brought me back to that. So yeah, I used to cook. But while I was doing all that, I had this dream to create this private investigating company, and I always had paranormal and UFOs kind of in mind. I always had this idea of like, what if I had this division where I could do this under the same model. So when I built my company, which is Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services, me and my wife had actually built it together. Pardon me. We had in mind that at some point we would use the paranormal and UFO as an element to delicately advertise a private investigating service, mainly because on the marketing side, it was really hard to say, when you get that question in a room with business meetings, they'd be like, hey, what do you do for a living? If I were to say, well, I'm a police officer or I'm a security guard, that would engage conversation. But if I say, well, I'm a private investigator, then they're leaving the room. So it was really hard to market. So we started to use our interest in the phenomenon as to investigate this phenomenon to kind of get that lead in for the sale, not on what we do, but on the real stuff. And it has worked quite well. And then, we've been doing it privately for so long. And then within the most coming years, now kind of segueing into my work with MUFON and stuff like that too. But then I started to become more open. But then I just basically decided to make it public and put a name on it, and we called it TESA. So it's something we've been doing secretly, I guess, privately, professionally for a while, and then that's kind of how that came about.
Very cool. So yeah. How long has it been a interest of yours to either study or investigate the paranormal and the UFO topics?
Well, I think I grew, like most of us in this era have grown into it, with the news and everything, and the media, X-Files, of course, and stuff like that. So I've always had an interest. My dad has had a UFO sighting. My mom has had some paranormal events. I think my sister has had some weird things as well. My wife now, she's has some things. So there's a lot of people in my family that are associated with it. So it was always a good conversation because I'm also known in the family as the PI, right? So it was always, so I've always been interested in it. I've always been investigating it, but I didn't professionally start doing it until 2015-ish, mainly because I was investigating a potential fraud from someone who had purchased the MUFON Mutual UFO Network and Field Investigator Manual. They didn't get they didn't get the manual. They paid the money, so I ended up following a lead to source that out to retrieve the funds for them. And in doing that, I ended up meeting the CEO of the Canada division of MUFON, and he cleared that up. So just a business thing or a logistical thing. We just didn't get it in time. But then we got into the conversation of real PI work, real investigative work, and of course, I was kind of primed at that point, looking for something to do, and I got started into that. And then 5 years later, here I am. I left MUFON for. If you want to get into that, we can. I don't know where you sit on the fence with
Yeah,
them,
well,
but.
no, I know a lot of people in MUFON. I think as an organization, it has some flaws, but if you look at the individuals and then the individual chapters, there's a lot of value that it adds to the community, the UFO Experiencer Community.
I agree. There's a lot of good that comes out of it. There is some negative that seems to be staying towards it. It's a great starting point, I think, for anyone who wants to seriously get introduced to the phenomenon. But that's it. And that comes from, just for your benefit and your listeners' benefit, I entered as a seasoned private investigator. I started as a field investigator field investigator, and then I was promoted to the chief investigator for Ontario. Then I was promoted to the assistant chief investigator for Canada, then promoted to the national chief investigator for Canada. So I was responsible for all the cases in Canada. And then I got promoted outside of international to national side to be the director of training. So I was responsible for training all the field investigators for MUFON HQ, worked with Jan, worked with all those people there too. And then that's when I really started to learn that MUFON is not the way that it used to be. And it's blown up to this big, large, medium business scale. And they were putting money first and all this other stuff ahead of the data and things like that. So when I caught wind of that, I tried to fix it. I tried to correct it as a national trainer, deal with problems, because I was really dealing with a lot of national stuff. So I ended up resigning from that position, went back to focus my work in Canada. But unfortunately, because I knew too much, I started to get some pressure. And for those of you who have followed me all the way through, you guys know that that's when I started to go public to talk about the things that they were doing. And I basically was with MUFON longer than I needed to be, but it was long enough to prove the point to expose and manipulate how the system is. And then from that, I could just continue doing what I've always done as under TESA, which just basically is our private investigating firm that privately investigates UFO and paranormal activity. So.
Okay, cool. So you do you still have any kind of relationship with MUFON, or have you severed ties with them completely?
I'm trying to convince them or help them, I guess, change the way that they are. When I was with National, I know so many people that have quit and got angered and frustrated. I share the same frustrations. I share the same issues. And it just comes from the matter of not understanding how the company was designed, not understanding the business side of it and how everything goes together, and not having the time to cater to everyone's concerns because it just blew up too fast, too soon. And it was like there was over 500 field investigators. Even myself, with the noble intentions that I claimed to have at the time, it was a difficult task for one person to do. And we're all volunteers. No one's being paid to do it. So there was a lot of frustration. So I always went to bat to try to justify why it is the way that it is. And in doing so, it created, but because I was told to leave it alone, I couldn't, and because I couldn't leave it alone, I was always trying to fix it because I didn't want to quit like everybody else did. It created animosity and frustrations to everybody else because they were getting the flack for not getting rid of me, but yet it was legally binding, so there was no way they could legally get rid of me because I hadn't done anything wrong. So I was that type of guy that was always trying to show them, like, look, I can fix this. Just let me fix this. But then the whole way through, it was one of those like, why won't you let me fix it? That's so strange. You complain and you dodge all these questions. I have a solution. I know what's wrong. I have time. I'm dedicated. Let me help you. Not even that. Oh, it must be the money. Well, here's some money. Let me help you. They wouldn't even take that. So I was seen as a private investigator because they knew I was at that time. So they didn't, maybe they just didn't trust me. So that got really ugly to the point that the person who created me, in the sense of the one who's promoted me and encouraged me all this way up until this point, had to step down. And somebody else came in and they did the dirty work and they pulled the plug on me without any explanation. That got all worked out. That's all sorted. He's gone. So now the guy that was, I guess, under me, but over me, he was just didn't exist. He just was never there, but now he's there. His name's Dave Palachuk. He's now the national chief for Canada, which I haven't seen at all during this pandemic. So I don't even know how MUFON is doing at all. They just completely went dark. Probably because they can't make any money. But so from there, we have been in communications because Dave and I work together in the field and things like that, and we've always gotten along. And there's a possibility, long story short, is of rekindling or rebuilding that bridge. But the thing is, TESA is not designed wasn't created as a response to replace MUFON. It was created as a response to assist MUFON, as well as anybody else who's in the field doing what they do. The independents, the researchers that are not part of a banner, those who, like yourself, I know you claim to not be an investigator or a researcher, but you did your part in studying anything. That's a researcher. You're having this conversation about the UFO phenomenon. That is service to ufology. So what TESA is the Experiencer Support Association, TESACAN.org. It's designed as tools and resources to take what we already have in ufology and make it better. And so as much as troubles that I had with MUFON, I always want MUFON. My ultimate goal is to reconnect with MUFON on that next level. So, as an example, MUFON has a plethora of investigators who are free at any will to investigate the phenomenon however they wish. They have their own decision on the dispositions, none of that, and then they report it. Then MUFON cherry picks the good stuff and they make publications about it, all that other stuff too. But there's no one fact-checking or reviewing the evidence. So the way that we have set TESA up, we have this project called Project Babel, which is off of the whole Tower of Babel when everyone was working together and then they've been separated and they're working against each other. The whole idea is to bring everybody back to the table together and have the best of the best weigh in on the same standards. So I'm still doing my national training the field investigators, but at a different or a higher level. at a capacity in which MUFON was unable to do, or actually unwilling to do, because if I had changed the manual like I wanted to as the National Director of Training, which I was responsible for, it would have cost them a lot of money and it would have set them back, and no one was willing to do that. So instead of destroying that or revamping that, I'm now building the next level. So as an example, with Project Babel, what we would want is, say, a MUFON field investigator who actually has a case that needs to be recognized on a global scale. We have this map, in which we call the virtual database, where we could add it. It's kind of like the virtual, the UFO stalker for MUFON, but it's just on visuals, because that's evidence, physical evidence. You would submit it through Babel. We would review it. We would make sure that that is the best possible evidence. You didn't miss anything. Everything's good. Everything's clean. And then we would re-promote it together, validating it, because you're getting accreditation from not just me, but a private investigating firm that is accredited and fully functioning in the handling and collection of evidence that gets prepped for court. So we're trying. That's how we're going to try and encourage to bring MUFON back to the table. But realistically, that won't happen, because the field investigator themselves are bound to a confidentiality agreement. They're not allowed to share that information because it belongs to MUFON. And it makes it really difficult for that to happen. That's what we want, but what's the realism behind it? So the counter to that is we're creating what we call Interstellar, which is the Academy of Ufology and Paranormal Studies, where we're going to be teaching enhanced courses specifically that go beyond the MUFON manual to assist the beginner as well as the current investigators, to continuously give them more and updated information, because this phenomenon is changing on a daily basis. We're learning more and more through the media on a daily basis too. And then with that, we also have the experiencer side, where we want to take care of the witnesses first. So that's the other thing too, is so that's the loophole. We don't need the MUFON field investigators to assist us. What we need is the experiencers to report to us, because it's their report. And the thing is when it gets reported to MUFON, the narrative has always been, it's ours. This is what we got. This is what we're publishing. This is what we're doing. But then I also got the return side, where people were complaining, saying, that's mine. They're making lots of money off of it. I didn't get anything of it. All that creative right and all that other stuff gets thrown out the window. So what we're trying to do is the same model, but putting the experiencer first in the driver's seat. And we're trying to.
That is, after all, what it's about. I mean, if you're an investigator looking into this topic,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not doing it with the best interest in mind for the person that's experienced it, then you're doing it for the wrong reasons to begin with. Mm-hmm. But let's back up just a little bit and talk about this, because what does classify somebody as an experiencer?
Well, what is an experience is basically anything that you witness, feel, observe, or go through. It's an experience. It changes the very instance of you in that moment. So that's the other thing too, is MUFON is UFO specific. MUFON is not capable of handling psychic abilities, paranormal activity, cryptozoology, paracryptozoology. MUFON got all those reports, and the protocol was to delete them and get rid of them, not because they weren't important and they couldn't use them, but that's okay on the sense that that's their focus. If everybody knows that they're driven towards UFOs, it makes sense that they wouldn't have any interest in paranormal, cryptozoologists and all that other phenomenon under the paranormal spectrum. However, the experiencer doesn't know that their case is being deleted, and they're forever waiting for a response that they're never going to get.
So let's talk about it from the TESA perspective. You guys do accept reports from all of those categories of phenomena. How do people report to you? How can people report to you if they've had an experience like that?
Yep. So we have, if you go to the website, tesacan.org/reporting system, our reporting system is there. It's mobile friendly, it's tablet friendly, you can use it for the computer. It's smart logic or conditional logic. So it will ask you questions, and based on your answers, it will ask you more questions about what's relevant to your thing. It's not going to ask you a plethora of questions like that have nothing to do with your case. It's case specific. I've designed it myself and I'm always updating it based on the issues that come up. Additionally, you can get the app for it on Google Play and Apple Store. It's called the UFO and Paranormal Reporting app, or you can search the Experiencer Support Association in those. And then you can download it and it goes right to your phone. And the idea from that is that as soon as something happens, you can pull it out, you can make a report instantly. Now, yep, go ahead, sorry.
So I was just going to ask, what you've already mentioned cryptozoology, UFO, and other paranormal. Can you be a little bit more specific of what type of cases you guys are going to drill down and actually take a look at?
Everything. We're going to take a look at everything. I actually have my 2020 report up here on my side computer here. Currently, I have 68 cases for 2020 that I'm investigating. And that's another thing too. Our reporting system is designed to get the best of the best. So if there's questions in there that you don't know, you can't, the form won't allow you to complete it until you go back and get the information that we need. So we're able to actually spend time. We don't want every case. We want the best of the best so that way we can reproduce the evidence. So with that said, currently looking at it, I have a variance of aerial activity, paranormal activity, mental abilities. Looks like there's a cryptid in there. There is also some psychic abilities, astral projection. We pretty well measure it all. But the way that we do it though is, again, it's the Experiencer Support Association. We study the people, not the phenomenon. So when we learn more about the phenomenon through the people, because through our system, you can't just report your life story. You have to report a event. So we encourage you to report the most significant event that brought you to that site. From there, we would encourage you to continue making reports of all the events that you could remember in all the categories. So, you know, a UFO event might have brought you to TESA. You fill that out, but then you can also do a paranormal report, all these other things. Once we've established that you've made every report that you know about, then we start investigating all the cases together, but individually. Once we are able to rule everyone out or categorize them in such a way, we then timeline them. And what we're finding in our research is that the paranormal activity and the mental activity seems to have come over an aging period of time, but the index events have started with some sort of contact, UFO, or ET experience. And the experiencer isn't connecting that. They're just talking about all these events in their life, and then we're able to suggest through our studies that it's possible that this ET influence or UFO influence, we can't confirm who's piloting these things, may have some sort of effect or direct responsibility to these paranormal elements and these psychic ability elements that have matured or developed as years go on. And with that, I'm able to share that belief that I don't believe that in the ghost phenomenon. I believe in the interdimensional spectrum and science and technology, hologram, like some sort of divine explanation for why this activity is happening. But for poltergeist, for example, my studies have shown more than not that the activity could be human initiated more than supernatural or initiated from the other side. And the term paranormal itself includes ufology because it simply means anything that's not normal. So if you see a cigar-shaped disc flying across the sky and it hasn't been disclosed yet, that's not normal, which means it's paranormal.
Right.
So there's a whole bunch of things in that.
Couple questions on that. So when somebody's filling out their case file or they're submitting their report, do you ask them? Do you ever give them an option to go public with their story through you guys, like to take that experience and go public to let other people know that this kind of event is happening?
So that form is the starting point, and it's also part of the healing. Okay. The other thing too is we want the people to feel good about their experience, or if they're feeling negative about it, we want them to come forward as part of the healing process. Not every case can be investigated. Not everybody has the proper evidence that we need to document it. But in their mind and in their experience and how they feel, they still feel something, and that needs to be taken care of. So when the report happens, everything that's in there, as well as you filling out everything, all that other stuff, you are hit with a bunch of important legal questions, such as, do you want to be anonymous? Is it okay to share this? What would you like TESA to do with this information? That's a very important question, because if somebody says just document it, then that's what we'll do. If somebody says, I want you to investigate it, I want you to publish it, then we have a written statement that from the experiencer that's giving us consent to do all these things. So then we're getting this permission, and we're doing exactly what they want. And if we're doing what they want, then they're going to be satisfied with the return. So plus, automatically from reporting, they get a copy of that report, so it becomes an electronic journal before we even touch it. And it's documented in such a way that you can reproduce and you can share and you can show everybody, and look, here's my experience that's broken apart into facts, broken apart into events and stuff that anyone could investigate. But the system is designed is to take that, oh my God, this just happened to me, blah, 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 you should have seen this, and blows it up into a systematic system that's easy for someone to scan and read and investigate without having to know the person whatsoever.
During the investigative process, when you said you've already come to you're on the verge of coming to conclusions. You can't really conclusively say anything in this whole topic, but you have some hypotheses that you're trying to flesh out. How do you prevent yourself from falling under the confirmation bias, the problem of confirmation bias, where you're only looking for evidence to support your hypothesis? You're not looking. I'm not saying that that's you doing that, but confirmation bias is the process of doing that.
Yeah, so that's the next step. So everybody in ufology, not just MUFON, does the standard. Hey, report to me. I'll investigate it. I'll get you on my podcast. I'll get you on my show. I'll help you write a book. I'll make a movie about it. I'll do all this stuff. That's the religion. That's the industry of ufology. What nobody is doing is making a report about their findings. So we actually have documented reports on our website, tesacan.org/data or data, however you want to say it. It has the 2019 reports, and 2020 is what I'm looking at. I'm 2 weeks away from my deadline to having that pre-released.
Is that just to interject? Is that the Canadian Current Event Survey? Is that what you're talking about?
So that's actually that's our drone report. So you've done your research. Thank you for doing that. So the CSIS is the Canadian Current Event Survey is specifically designed. That's something completely different. That's the disclosure part. But but it actually ties into what I was leading to. So let me just finish this thought to come into that, because I'll tie into that.
Definitely.
So once the data is done and that's tabled and I have the graphs, I formulate my opinion on the data that's there. But what's important is at the end is to say, this is my opinion, but it's done in such a way, again, to assist MUFON, to assist anyone in this field to look at this data and say, hey, this is what we've done. What do you think? How does it apply to what you're doing? And trying to encourage the conversation, trying to encourage others to share their data with us. But nobody's doing that because it takes away from their limelight. It takes away from their, like you said, confirmation bias, what they're trying to push, their own agendas. So once we have this data, the first year was a baseline, mainly because I was in between. I was trying to see if I had enough, I wouldn't say popularity, enough push from my momentum from my MUFON following to actually pilot something on this public side. It was very successful, and that's why this second year is kind of revamping off to that. So this will be a comparison to the previous years. So from that, we'll actually have an average, and then the next step is actually going in the field and trying to recreate these events and applying science to these hypotheses. So some of the questions that are asked to our experiencers are you interested in what's called Operation Paranormal? So Operation Paranormal is our private project where say somebody claims to be able to remote view or to be able to levitate, some sort of psychic ability, some sort of physical ability that cannot, that is a phenomenon, but they're willing to be tested. They're willing to prove that it exists. So we have a group of people that we will connect with and actually go and do some private experimentation to see it happen and document it and reproduce it. Now, leading in, so the CSIS part, again, so this is the TESA side, how we investigate the entire phenomenon. My roots, a ufologist, ufology in Canada. Always interested in UFOs, always investigating, following the movement, everything up until pretty well this point. And the CSIS, which is Canadian Current Event Survey, is specifically traffic events that come from Transport Canada or that have delayed or altered flight traffic due to some sort of events. So Transport Canada puts out a report of 600 to 700 issues daily of things that interrupt airflow. So I've subscribed, I pay for a subscription. I'm one of the members that get all this information, and I get it daily, and I'm always looking at it and I'm tracking keywords. So what I do is I track keywords like drones, RPAS, so remotely piloted air systems. I think I said that right. I will track UFO. Because Canada actually categorizes UFOs. And believe it or not, Canada has been very open with UFO investigations up until 1995. And they actually have an archive that you can find, and there's a plethora of documents that are accessible. It's just nobody knows what they're looking at because they don't understand evidence. So what I've been doing is I've been tabling the keyword drone because I have this hypothesis, and like many people in the ufology community think that they're using the word drone to mask UFO or UAP. Okay. And that's another thing too. There is a difference between UFO and UAP. People say you got to use UAP to separate from UFO, but why? Because UFO actually just means flying up. It just means a machine that has wings. So a disc could be a UFO, an orb, paranormal could be UAP, so there's a difference. But with measuring drones, I'm getting specific characteristics of height, maneuverability, things like that in the verbiage of how it was, because it's categorized as a drone, but the intake explanation that the civilian gets from the pilot that reports into this report that the public sees before the investigation happens. So I'm actually tabling the information before the government does their investigation. I'm actually starting to see a very large amount of drones that are at a very high altitude. And I have, his name's Stephen Coffey, which is a drone specialist on our team, who has confirmed that the drones that he uses, because he's an RPAS pilot, he does government travel and everything, all that too, he's confirmed that that's technology that he does not know exists, and it's impossible for them to be drones at that height. So using that information, that gets drawn into my disclosure part, where I'm actually going back to Canada's original cases that were like Shag Harbor, Falcon Lake, Duhamel, what else is there? Clan Lake in Northwest Territories. Those are some of our most significant documented cases through the RCMP, coincidentally around the just after Cold War. So what I plan to do is I actually have done a Freedom of Information request, and I've received the original documents from the Canadian Space Agency regarding Paul Hellyer and his connection with aliens and UFOs. I have information on Project Magnet, which is the Canadian, I would say the Canadian equivalent to Project Blue Book, which many people don't know about. Project Second Story, which would be the Canadian equivalent, which is the Science Review Board, like the Condon Report in USA. So there's a lot of information that not too many people know, and Canada's really involved, was really involved up until 1995. So what I'm doing is I'm taking all that factual stuff that can be confirmed and validated because it comes from a government source. That's why that table is separate. That's a actual government information from the horse's mouth, can be drawn to be used to prep to go to court. What I'm planning on doing is using that information and then entering into my hypothesis through experiencers through TESA to create some sort of factual environment where I can start the conversation with our Canadian Parliament to say, not really ask them, do aliens exist? Because we know what the answer is going to be. It's more so like, are you aware that on this date at this time that this object was in the sky? And then see what they were saying. Okay, you weren't aware? Well, here's the evidence that proves that it was here because I have the video. I've done all this. I've done all that. I've done a Freedom of Information request. You sent it back twice saying you have no record found, but I can confirm that it was there and it was here with this physical video that I have that's right in front of you. You don't know what this is. No? Okay.
Does Canada have a system in place, or maybe you have a system in place for military personnel for, I don't know if you guys have an FAA, it's probably called something different, Federal Aviation Administration. Is there a reporting system in place for people in an official capacity can make reports without any kind of recourse against them or backlash against them?
I'm sure there is. I haven't really found that in my investigations yet. I'm aware of the Department of National Defense is involved. The NORAD is involved. The Canadian Space Agency is involved. They all have internal investigations. So I would imagine, I know there's a service report, which is actually something that came out around the 70s, I believe, where Canada had to pass any UFO event over to the States through this document, which would make sense why we kind of been quiet for a little bit while. Mainly, I think it's because we're giving US everything, which that kind of throws into the pool and mix of things. So yeah, I'm sure it exists. I don't know it off my hand.
On your end, have you had people coming forward that were in an official capacity? And if they do, how do you protect them from, confidentiality and that sort of thing?
So I have not. Now that's the other thing that's very important that you brought that up. So with everybody else who does this as a hobby, which is, when I say hobby, I don't mean you're not intelligent. I don't mean that your effort isn't valued. What I mean is you fit in this category where you work 9 to 5 or whatever job you have, you work really hard, you got a family, you do everything, and then when you got wee hours of the night with nothing else to do, you sit down and you try to make a difference within ufology. That is the general consensus of everybody that is doing everything on the civilian or private side or public side. The problem with that is that none of these paranormal groups or ufology groups are bondable or insured to actually go out and put boots on the ground or do anything, or could create documents that have anything. The government can do that, of course. But with my company, which is Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services, so the private investigating firm, and since TESA is a subdivision of that, we're actually bonded, we're actually insured. So in the case that if someone were to come forward, and here's this, and on this particular show, if they were to make a choice of who they would need to come out to, if safety was a concern, well, we would put them through our company. So our company would we would do a private investigation that would have to have a retainer and confidentiality and all that other stuff, such the same. But the thing is, your name isn't important. Your name is only important if you want to be famous or you want to be known. The event is what's important. Where it happened is what's important. What happened to you is what's important. How it made you feel, the physical evidence that you have, that's what's important. Your name is not important in the sense of solving this riddle for the world. Where your name becomes important to us as TESA, because we get to know you, we get to know your experience, we get to understand your character, and we protect that. So it really doesn't matter who comes forward, and we would never know if they're a government agent because it's not relevant. It's not, if you are, I'm being very stereotypical here, but if you are a stay-at-home parent, and you are not working because you are unable to, because you have to take care of your children, which is a very common case these days, and that's what you give as your credible statement, saying that you have nothing to lose, then that's just as valid as somebody saying I'm a pilot for the Canadian government or the American government. Because some people use their credentials as leverage, and it's shit. It's actually, like, sometimes it's shit. And I'll give you an example on the private investigating side. I have gotten private clients off of lots of money because their lawyers try to screw them out of multiple dollars, like thousands of dollars, and their math was wrong. So they may be very, very good at doing the law and the legal stuff, but they're not good at doing their math. And because their math was wrong, it's all wrong. And the courts look at that and they throw it all out. So my role in all of this, and I get a lot of flack too, because you know how I said I was trying to build a bridge with MUFON. Well, I've also tried to build bridges with other people, and everybody that I've tried to help has told me to F off because they think that I'm on a different planet and I have no idea of who they are, and their years of experience matter. And unfortunately for me, the experience means crap if you don't have any evidence. Like, for example, MUFON has over 100,000 cases in their database. That's impressive. But 100,000 cases of bad data. 100,000 cases that have not been fully investigated, every lead. 100,000 cases that 1,200 of which I have personally investigated, and I've identified majority of them in my career. Identified them. So there's even identified cases in that number. It's bad data. And then after so many years of doing this, to have nothing to show for it, it's embarrassing. And not saying MUFON is bad. It's just they're not efficient. They're not efficient, okay. Right? So either they don't know how, or it's part of the plan, which means there's an ulterior motive, which we don't know, and we can't confirm. But if you want disclosure, you got to check the evidence. So what I've been doing with Babel, again, is I'm trying to encourage people to utilize my resources as a private investigating firm who can validate and confirm that you have done the best to your ability. And if you haven't, trust us to teach you through our academy tips and suggestions on how you could do better. And what we're trying to do with the Experiencer, most of them don't have evidence. So what we do is we take the report, we go as far as we can, but then we educate them on how to get good evidence, because we want them to report again. And when they report again, that evidence for the same phenomenon, if it happens again, well, guess what? We have 2 cases, right? Which means we have stronger evidence on that witness testimony. But now that witness has reported better evidence, and now we can use it. So every single case that comes in can be used as evidence if you follow the lead and you use the people involved and teach them on how to get what it is that you need. But MUFON doesn't show you that. Researchers don't know how to do that.
Let's back off a little bit on MUFON, because I get that, and I don't want to belabor the point. I just want to I want to talk about some more little bit less technical stuff, and talk about a little bit of the specifics of some of the cases that you've investigated, if that's okay.
Anything you want.
So the strangest, do you have a strangest case that you've investigated?
What would you consider to be strange? Because it's all strange.
What would you consider to be strange? Because you've looked at this stuff a lot more than the average person, and in your mind, some things have to stand out that are more unusual than the typical lights in the sky, or even a craft that has been sighted, even if it's by multiple witnesses.
So, I'm just taking a quick scan of my database over here on the side. So just to getting something to draw from. So for me, what's odd or interesting, I would say, is the description that the experiencers use to describe the archetype of what they think they may have seen, and comparing that to what they draw and then or capture, and then comparing that to everybody else that fits in their categories. So as an example, if you use the word entity, that could be an alien, that could be a shadow figure, that could be an animal, it could be like any physical being. Ghosts, when people report ghosts, sometimes they end up looking like shadow figures. But even though they call them ghosts, and technically a ghost is a see-through apparition, things like that, when you break it down to the root word. So I'm understanding that some of the people are associating terms with it based on how they were raised in this religion, I guess, per se. So what I'm finding interesting is, once I work through all the experiencers and I'm able to categorize the root word, so no matter what it looks like or whatever you call it, whatever you label it, we can agree that it's an entity or a being in this sense. What I'm noticing is that a lot of them look like these shadow figures wearing cloaks. There's a lot of commonalities between what's being drawn, but then when I reapply the labels, it's a variance of alien, ghost, apparition. So they're all calling it different things, but visually it's the same or very similar. So I'm finding this bleeding of misinformation, I guess, or confused media.
I think. Can I just interject? I totally get what you're saying, and this is a question that I've been asking continuously since I started really looking into this stuff myself. And the question that I had was, and I'm going to reframe my question, but I used to say, what is the connection between the paranormal, meaning the spirit entities and ghosts and even demonic stuff like that, apparitions, and the UFO phenomenon? Where's the connection? So what you're kind of talking about right now almost leads me to believe that there is a connection, and it's maybe more of a misidentification by the witnesses, and not that they're misidentifying something that we know, but they're misidentifying what we don't know, and they're looking at something that it could be an alien, or it could be an apparition, but it more than likely is actually the same thing or something very similar. Is that kind of what
That's exactly it. So what we're doing is we're taking every case and we're breaking it down to the core. So for an example, we have a category called aerial activity. So that includes machine and lights, because and no matter if you believe in paranormal or UFO, you both should agree that the phenomenon is in the air and it's active. So we're trying to, we also call them sensory displays, whether you see them in your mind, see them in your eyes, hear them, touch them, feel them, doesn't matter the method, it's still a display through the senses. So we're trying to show that is also a way how we can bridge the gap between UFO and paranormal. So once we're able to we've created a very intricate classification scale, which we haven't released yet. I know you don't want to get into the technical stuff, but if you're familiar with the Hynek scale, I've reclassified that. I've remade it. I've gotten a lot of shit for thinking about it.
Just for clarification, the Hynek scale, is that the CE 1, 2, 3, 4?
Yeah, CE 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Yeah, okay. Close Encounters 1, 2, and 3. Then Valet came in and added the paranormal scale to that for 1 to 5. So I've created, through the help of my team, a new scale that I'm going to be introducing through this report, and we're using it to help other investigators too. So to get the link, are they connected? Yes, everything is connected. It's just how it's connected or why it's connected. We're not going to get those answers until we're able to confirm one thing. But if you can accept that they're connected, then it's easier to investigate the whole phenomenon. My goal is to prove that the event happened, to prove that the evidence that you have is the best evidence available, to prove that the evidence that you have is unedited, unaltered. It cannot be questioned. From there, it can be sent to the wolves to be interpreted however you wish. And in doing so, it doesn't matter what you call it. It doesn't matter what you label it. It doesn't matter what you name it. It's what are we looking at? And then what I'm hoping to have is this group, this coming together and just looking at it and trying to make sense of what it looks like or what it could be. Because in that atmosphere, it is something. And it's not theory. It's an actual piece of evidence that we're looking at. And if somebody wants to call it a UFO, then it would be based on what type of characteristics. We're going to have to break that all down and basically revamp the entire thing. And with that, we have the UFO explanation for paranormal. Is it connected? No. The UFO explanation is that it's not connected because they don't believe that the possibility of ghosts and spiritualism and all that other stuff to exist, because it interferes with the nuts and bolts scientific movement that everyone claims to be a part of. Little do they know that something that is, you cannot be a ufologist technically because you cannot study something that is unidentified. Because if you've studied it, therefore it's identified, and you cannot be a ufologist because you're just basically studying a bunch of things that you don't know anything about. So, but the term UFO, again, as I mentioned earlier, is categorized under paranormal. So on the ghost side, paranormal side, sorry, I'll just finish this quick.
Sure.
So the paranormal side would say, we believe in aliens because interdimensional travel and mysticism and all this other stuff, there's a lot of belief on that side. It's bringing them together. So the way to bring the ufology community together is to apply the paranormal side in a scientific way. And one element or anecdote that I've always used is to look at the apparition or the ghost part as technology. So interdimensional travel, hologram, some sort of science-based technology that's able to manipulate the vision, the sound. And if they can understand that, then it's possible that then it doesn't matter if it's ghost, because that's just a theory or a label applied to the same phenomenon. So we need the evidence
before
we can label it.
I've talked with, or I've heard that theory by one other investigator, and he's in Nevada. And his theory is that they are using this technology to mimic spirits and ghosts, but spirits and ghosts are still something different. In his theory, what do you? How would you respond to that?
Well, it's a theory, and everyone has like a hypothesis and stuff, and so we're all trying to make sense of this phenomenon. Anything is plausible, anything is possible. How do we get confirmation? We need disclosure. So
here's another another point to your hypothesis. If it is technology, and it's a really hypothetical or a really speculative question, but do you have an explanation as to why they would use such an advanced technology if they can appear as apparitions and fool us into thinking that they're spirits from beyond the afterlife? Why would they be using that on individuals?
See, that's a whole other level, and that's the thing. Is like the speculation can go endless. That's where we get the theory. That's where we get the hypothesis. This is where we get the papers, and where all these researchers think they've solved all the world's problems because they've written a million books on an idea, but they're not looking at the evidence. The evidence will answer a lot of those questions, but to prove intent, and even on the real side, like the PI side, if I got a recent case from a client who thinks that an accountant has intentionally ripped him off, and I have to investigate and try to prove intent. I can't prove what his motive is. I can suggest it by the factual evidence that leads up to it, and make a suggestion, and then do some sort of baiting technique to predict a behavior. But that's easy for me to do because I understand how human behavior works. So I cannot predict a spirit's behavior or intent or motive unless we get confirmation that they exist. Now, what I can do is I can profile humans and the experiencers in the government and be like, okay, so I like the answer to your question. Why would they do that if they're government? Well, maybe they're testing equipment.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking government. I was thinking if they're ET using this technology.
But we got nothing. We have no reference. That's the thing. There's no reference. So we have, and that's another thing too with the Experiencer Support Association. Our focus is on the people because we can use them as reference. And if the people have psychic abilities, then maybe it's just that. Maybe it's not interdimensional beings. Maybe it's not aliens. Maybe it's just we as a human race are evolving intellectually. That is also a theory and a very good possibility that no one's looking at because they want to believe that it's aliens and they want to believe that it's ghosts. And it's possible that both of them are misdirections. But
I actually think I think there are some people looking at that, but they're not going public with it just yet.
Well, and then we get into religion and all that other stuff too. But I mean, that's the thing this is the problem. And that's why we as TESA are not engaging in that phenomenon in our study. What we're trying to do is basically get a baseline of what actually exists, formulate a new narrative or a new opinion, I should say, not narrative. That implies that we're putting something specific out, but like a new assessment or analysis for review to get attacked, to be ripped apart or whatever, because it's something that hasn't been done before. A reassessment of old evidence that's been overlooked. For an example, I got a cold case, like the cold case that everyone talks about for Shag Harbor. It's the big case that everyone talks about here in Canada. And I pulled the report. I looked at the report. I don't want to quote it on here because I got to be specific, but there's stuff they missed. There's places that haven't been looked. There's stones that have never been unturned. And these people are famous because they're just talking about the story for 100 years. So In my personal opinion, on the private sector, from whoever I've encountered, again, I've never talked to everybody in the world, just in my circle, and ufology is very small. I've yet to come across anybody who has properly investigated the phenomenon. A lot of people are researching it. A lot of people are studying it. A lot of people are applying opinions and theories and trying to make sense of it. And that's good. But there's retired police officers that kind of have an idea of how to handle evidence, but they're retired. They're not active. I'm active. I'm investigating every single day something, whether it's real or a phenomenon. So I try to make myself available. And my message that I kind of want to get out to everybody is, if you are the same as me or could use me, contact me. I will help you, or you can help me, or look at my work, rip it apart, tell me what I've done wrong. Like, I'm being very bold with changing everything, but I'm also open to be criticized. I want to know what I'm doing wrong, because I want answers. And nobody's saying anything, and I don't want them to be afraid to, but it also could be the fact that maybe I'm not ringing a loud enough bell. And one day that bell might, if I continue on the path that I'm on and I bring up this new evidence, which I have, I just haven't figured out the best way to present it, because I don't want to hurt a lot of people's feelings. But I want to try to deliver it in a good way, or the best way, and be prepared for that backlash. Because,
well, if you're open to it, I have come across a couple of resources that might be helpful to you, and I'll point you in the direction. You can look at them and decide if you want to contact them and then share that data with them. But there is an organization called the Scientific Community for UAP Studies. The website is explorescu.org. Are you familiar with them?
They are on my radar. I don't know them well, but they do look like they're up and up. Yes.
Okay. It's a group of scientists that study the reports of phenomena, write peer-reviewable papers on it, and then submit it to the scientific community. exactly what you were talking about.
So I could give them my reports, and they would review it?
They will peer-review your reports, yes. That's
perfect.
Correct.
Then I would love that.
It's a multinational. It's a multinational organization. It's a nonprofit organization.
Yeah.
And they're all volunteers, but they're all just as invested in this as you are, from my understanding.
Do you have a direct lead that you could send me offline, or like a direct, or do I just reach out to them?
Oh, there's it's a huge organization with members all over the world, but you could reach out. Okay, I'll give it to you after
I just kind of want to. I just want to make sure it doesn't end up in the junk mail. You know what I mean? No, I want to make a serious request.
I'll give you a direct contact after we get off of this. Another thing that is a up and coming new technology for tracking UAP, and you may or may not have heard of it, is called Skyhub.
I've heard of Skyhub, yes, okay. And that is very good. It's technology.
Yes.
The theory and the concept is good. It's linked, from my understanding, it's linked to all the known data sets, and then when they get an anomaly, it's being charted.
Yes.
So that is good data. So when that data comes out, it becomes a report. But the thing is, in my opinion, data is good for story hypothesis and papers. But as an investigator trying to communicate this to an audience that doesn't understand science as quickly as the rest of us doesn't understand, like the simple learners, we need visuals. You know, so from what I'm understanding, I hope that Skyhub, when they put out their first report, it comes with visuals, not just the data, because
they do have some visuals, and some of the visuals are impressive, but they're not groundbreaking. So, like seeing a light in the sky, stop, go the other direction. Do some weird maneuvers, and what is it? They've identified it as not something that has a flight path or a planned flight path. So it could be a drone, but it's way
Could be a
too high
drone.
up to be a privately owned drone. And
Are you able to gauge the height from the software
they
though?
do,
Do they
yeah,
measure that?
they
Yeah.
do
Okay.
have that kind of measuring capability with that technology. Again,
Yeah.
you sound like you're completely swamped with your own methodology, but these are areas that you might consider just adopting. And
Well, I'm not swamped. I'm focused because
right,
of my assessment on how ufology has been handled. I'm having a very hard time trusting that anyone is doing it the way that I think it should be done from my perspective and from my background, from being the one who's done it, who's gone through the circuit like everybody else has and hasn't given up and made changes and does all this. So I'm a little biased on that, but I'm not afraid to take the opportunity if I happen to be in line with somebody else in their mission. That's why I'm trying to say that anybody, SkyHub, whether I have a difference of opinion on how that data should be used, the effort, the money, even you, like this effort to have this conversation, this is all part of that movement, and it's important. My goal is basically to do what we do in the way that we think is missing. We're not trying to do what everyone else is doing. We're trying to, like SkyHub. SkyHub is focused on something that we don't have. That's not just good technology. That is a tool that has never existed before, and that should help investigators like myself and other people with their investigation. Like the CSIS report, that is information about drones in Canada. I can only do it in Canada because I'm a Canadian citizen. Unfortunately, I don't have access to the FFA and or in FAA, yeah.
FAA, yeah.
Yeah, in USA. But if I were to encourage somebody to do the same, then there we go. We have some data there. So I'm just trying to produce alternative data, put it in the race, and hope that somebody will see it and be able to use it that might enhance their work, or they point out a flaw and be comfortable enough to enhance mine, and then we work together. So it's not that I'm swamped, I'm focused. And one day that bell will ring where I might have found something that is worthy of landing in the paper. And it's at that point that everything that I've done up to this point will be under a microscope. And it's at that point that they're going to point out the mistakes that I've made in the past. It's at that point that they're going to try to debunk me and say that I've made all these other mistakes. And I'm well aware of that. But I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing it for the people. I'm doing it for the experiencers. Yeah. Because it's them who report to us. And I'm focusing on them, on their reports, on their information, and I'm doing this for them because they chose us. Now, it's very important that you don't only report to us. You don't only report to MUFON. You should report to as many people as you need or as you want, because everyone investigates it differently. And you want to have a consensus or a informed opinion of variables. We do it a certain way because we're focused, but that doesn't mean our analysis is correct. So, you want to share your experience multiple times and pull your data together and come to your own conclusion. What we're hoping to do through TESA on the evidence review side is to bring in representatives from the best of the best, so that way we can weigh in on all of these cases from all over the place. I wouldn't like to have MUFON as part of TESA, but I would like to have somebody who's actively representing MUFON to review the evidence that we receive at the end of the year, to actually be like, okay, what are we looking at?
Okay, let me jump on that point right there that you're talking about, because that is one of the key. I guess, if I have an agenda, one of the things that I am always working towards is to expand the awareness beyond the regular UFO community. I want people that are outside the UFO community, just like when I told you in the pre-conversation about my neighbor when I talked to my neighbor, and she looked at me like I was crazy. I'm trying to get people outside of the UFO community to talk about this. There is a very strong concerted effort right now going on. You're familiar with UFO Twitter?
Yeah.
Okay. So there is some good, some bad. It's not all good. It's not all bad. But there are some really good initiatives that are coming out of UFO Twitter and the people within that community. And one of those is a project called the Big Phone Home. Have you heard of this?
No.
Okay. So what that is, it's a like a concerted effort or push for disclosure, for government disclosure. And there are people within the UFO community, influential people within the UFO community, that are trying to encourage people who are interested in the topic to call their Congress members, call their representatives, either on April 26th or prior to April 26th. And there's information available. There's one YouTuber who is dedicated his whole channel to this effort, and he's going to be on my program later in the week. But his name is Luis Jimenez, and his channel, let me just make sure I say it correctly, the Unidentified Celebrity Review on YouTube. It's a growing channel, but he's really, really pushing this effort to get people to make
when they make the call, what are they asking? What are they saying?
Well, that's another part of it. There are people, including Chris Mellon, Lou Elizondo, that are trying to put together a script for people that want to call in, so that everybody who's calling in are hitting the same talking points. And right now they're trying to determine what those talking points should be. But if you want to just make that call on your own, you can tell your Congress member or your representative, whoever it is you're calling, you just want the government to be more transparent about the UFO topic. And the more people that do that, the more pressure it's going to put on those representatives.
We don't actually have that issue here in Canada. I've asked, and they give me, I have files I just haven't looked at yet. I have information. Okay. But the thing is, no, it's a good point. It's a good movement. And that it also links to the fact that, because remember, Canada at some point stopped doing it on their own and are now funneling to US. So I don't think that me in Canada or anybody in Canada would have any effort on doing that on our side, because they would more than likely say, we got to go through the US, because there's that's the system that exists right now, is to funnel to the USA.
But to that point, there's a cooperative effort going on between people in the UFO community within the US and people in the UK, because the UK has the same problem that we have in the US. But what I'm asking you, or the reason why I'm bringing it up with you, is because you do have an influence outside of Canada. And if you can help spread the word about this effort and encourage people that are within the US or in the UK to call their representatives at that time and to look at this effort, learn more about it, and get involved, then it just continues to build momentum. And that's really what I would ask of you, if you could do that.
Well, I appreciate that, and on that context, I definitely will look into it, because I wrote down the Big Phone Home, correct? April 26th.
That's it. Yes.
Is that information correct? Yeah. So we can talk more offline. I'm more than likely. I got some notes too. We can put together and firm everything up too. Cool. I can't say for sure that I will do that, because I don't know what I'm looking at.
Totally
I'm just hearing about it for the first time. But what you're saying and what you're telling me, it makes sense. It feels good. And if there's no harm, why not? I'll contribute. I'll help. Right?
Great. Well, on that note, talk about your podcast, because that's one of the things, the ways that you reach out to the public and spread the word about the work that you're doing. So I want to give you an opportunity to talk about that.
Yeah, so the podcast actually, we have a podcast network, but the main podcast is Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. That is, I'm the host seat this year. Last year we had another host and a different host before that. But the point of this podcast is experiencer based. So we want to have, we have a variance of people that are in line with our mission, talking about what they do and how it helps the experiencers. We have podcast, we do show exchanges like like this one I'll be on, and then you'll be on to talk about experiences or the ideas around that. But we also use it, which we will be using starting in April. We will be bringing on witness testimonies from experiencers that we've actually have cases that are unidentified, to actually talk about their cases and the work that we've done on that sense too. So it's a mixed bag of thing. We're not really looking to get everybody, the who's who on the show. It's more so trying to get those who haven't had the opportunity, who have a voice, and would like to get their message out there as part of, again, as the healing process or the accepting process of coming out, I guess. Because TESA has, like, reporting is one way of expressing yourself. The data side, that's just what I'm focused in. The other things that we have is this thing, it's also on March 13th, it's called Experiencers Anonymous. So that is actually a Zoom meeting that we set up once a month, where experiencers can attend and talk to the support team, such as so Tim Morrison and Chantel Chauvin are the leaders of that. They're also members of TESA, but their whole idea is to basically have a group together where everyone just talks anonymously. We don't want your name, we don't want your locations, any of that stuff. You get the private link through purchasing a ticket on Eventbrite, but it's free. I say purchase, but it is free. It's just how you can get the private link so we can keep track of the numbers. You just show up and you listen, or you talk and you share your experience. So it's done. Getting it off your chest will help you understand it. Putting it into words, saying it out loud to other people is part of the process. And then if that leads you to making a report, then that's great. In my mind, that report will be 100% better after you've already said it, after you've already communicated to it, after you've gotten it out. So then you're actually saying it the way it's meant to be said after some rational thought. So that's a method. The podcast is another method. Once we've investigated a case and we kind of decompress. What did we just go through? What's actually going on? And then we share it together. So if you're an experiencer and you're on the podcast with us, the point of that is for you to talk about your experience, but then for me to validate and confirm the things that you say and say, yeah, you're telling the truth. And some people need that. And what we're trying to do through this method, because the data is important. That's what everybody else is doing. Data. And like I said, they don't care about the people, but the people are the reason why everybody is doing what we're doing. I would not be sitting here talking to you today if I didn't have people that are depending on me to do what I do. It's the people that I do all this. And with that, we want to make sure that they are not haunted by these aliens. They're not, there's a pun between both worlds there, haunted by aliens. And we want to make sure that they aren't living with PTSD, any traumatic anxiety, stuff like that. Because regardless of what has happened to these people, now my focus is not lights in the sky. My focus is abductions, shadow fake visitations, people being kidnapped, crimes, rape, like things like the serious stuff that doesn't sell on TV, that doesn't write books, that doesn't make it to Hollywood, the stuff that no one ever talks about, because that's why it's done privately. But we want these people to try and not feel so negative about it. And if they have abilities, then we're trying to encourage them through the EA project to enhance their abilities or develop their abilities in a safe place. And the best thing about EA is I'm not present.
What's the EA program project?
So it's Experiencers Anonymous.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so it's basically the entry point. You show up, you listen. So someone might share a story. It encourages you to talk. If you talk and then you leave, nothing gets recorded, nothing gets documented, but you feel different when you leave. That's the point.
Cool.
And if you feel better about yourself and the phenomenon, then it will encourage you to report. Because what I need is not is more people reporting. I need more people coming forward. I need more people telling the stories that they were afraid to say many years before because they don't trust the system. There's all these resources.
How can people find out more about this Experiencer Anonymous on March 13th? Is that an ongoing project?
Yeah, so there's multiple ways. On the website, tesacan.org/EA. Excuse me, there's a form that you could fill out to request for the next one. I'll send you the direct link to the event that's current. Or you can go to eventbrite.ca and just search the Experiencer Support Association or Experiencers Anonymous. You can probably search that on Google. I think we've done it enough times, it might pop up. It is also in our newsletter. If you go to tesacan.org tesacan.org, you can just wait for the thing to pop up. Subscribe to the newsletter. We haven't put out the March one out yet, but it'll have the date in that. And yes, it is reoccurring. We do it once a month, usually the second Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern time. And again, it's just like, it's adopting the AA or the NA model in the sense of, just show up, listen, talk, and we're here for you. And I'm not present. I have very specific rules in place that no researcher, investigator, journalist, no one is allowed. I filter everything out. Anyone who purchases or who gets a ticket, I do a quick check to make sure that there are none of those. If they turn out to divulge that when they show up at the meeting, they get booted out. Like we make it absolutely as safe as possible under normal circumstances that the person can show up and talk in a safe space. You don't have to have your video. You can just listen, and you put your audio on when you decide to talk. You can be completely anonymous. Your names aren't put there. It doesn't matter who you are in that sense. What matters is that you are able to speak, because that will feel better.
It's actually the first time I've heard about somebody doing that with an online forum. Is that available to people outside of Canada, or is it mainly targeting? Okay, cool. Yeah, that's a great idea, man.
I'll send you the link. No, thank you. I mean, it's something we've been doing. Of course, it's privately. We're not like trying to, we're pushing it, but we don't want to force people to do something they're not comfortable with. What if
it blows up to where you get thousands of people showing up to each one of these events? Do you have a way to break them down into smaller groups?
Well, we've talked about that.
Okay.
Yeah, we've talked about that. We've decided this is our third one. We've already said we need to cap this at some point, but we don't want to cap it. We just kind of want to see how many people come, because it's available to needing it. If we cap it, then there's an opportunity missed for somebody, and we don't know how important that safe space is for anybody who sees it.
Absolutely.
So as we grow, we'll adjust, we'll adapt if we need to do or we need to go longer because we had so many people show up. Right now we have 100 set as available. It hasn't maxed out yet, so we're okay with that, comfortable right now. but then there's the reality of how many people get the ticket and remember to show up. So there's a variance that we're working through.
It's
But
good
if
that
we
you
have
have
to do,
it's good that you have a vetting process also, because if you get people that are just looky-loos, just curious going in there, and they don't really have an experience, that's not helping anybody. And you want people
well,
that
they're
are
just,
interested in getting help, right?
and that's the thing that everyone is forgetting. If you don't have to, like, if there's one thing that I want anyone to remember, if I still have your attention an hour and 25 minutes into the show, is remember, I am a private investigator, licensed and regulated with a private investigating firm, and expect to be investigated, inspect to be interrogated, inspect to have a background check, because it's my responsibility to protect anyone who makes a report or comes under my banner, because it's under a subdivision of my company, which pays my bills. So my company pays the bills, TESA does not, right? But I still have the responsibility to uphold the reputation that has given me the freedom to be able to do this service. So, when you submit a case for review, the expectation is being reviewed by a team of private investigators, not a team of people. Like what you mentioned before with that science review board, if that's a list of scientists, that's great, because I'm not a scientist, but I need scientists on my team, So that is a very good resource, and I'm glad you shared that. But I know that when I send them that, I'm not just going to say, hey, dude, look at this. I'm going to send a very nice, formal, well-presented piece of information, even if it's not necessary, because I know they're scientists and that's what I expect.
And that's what they're looking for.
No,
they actually
exactly.
don't get enough submissions to their organization. So
well,
it'll be good.
I'm going to firm up with you to get the exact details, and I'll prepare something like that too. It's scary too. I say I want somebody to rip it apart, and deep down inside, I'm hoping it's perfect. But if I want answers, if I'm serious, I'm going to do this for the next, 50 years. I need to know. I need to know now. Whether I'm right or wrong, and I need to fix it before it blows up. Because but yeah. So,
well, I think what you're doing, Ryan, I really think what you're doing is honorable. I think it's credible. And I'm very happy that you accepted my invitation to come on and talk about what you're doing with everybody.
And I appreciate your time, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. And I'm going to return the favor, bring you onto our show, and hopefully we can maybe find some sort of an experience that you might have had. Who knows? We'll dive deep into that. We'll figure it out. But again, I just want to preface or actually conclude and say that if it wasn't for the people that have reported to me over the years through MUFON, through TESA, followed me, who have entrusted me, who has given me the opportunity to represent you, I wouldn't be able to do this. And it's very important, if you have any investigators that are listening to this that understand where I'm coming from, TESA has an opportunity for you to work with us too as an individual. All you need to use us for is to fact check and verify that your tools are aligned, and that's intimidating, because a lot of people, like myself, are afraid that their life's work will be, and reputation that they build off of, will be destroyed. Our intent is not to destroy you. Our intent is to correct you and help you and assist you and make you better. And if you're humble, just like I'm going to have to be with the science review board here, I got to be humble and see what they say. It's part of it. Until we get that standard, that 180-day countdown, when we get something we can actually factually compare our data to, this is all we got. But if we don't have someone doing what we're doing, we're not going to get any answers. So if the government's not going to do it, somebody has to. And that's kind of the position that I want TESA to be, or that's the goal that TESA is we want to be available to assist everybody in the phenomenon, to take what they're already doing and make it better.
Great message, man. And with that, did you give enough contact information to people for people to reach you? TESAcan.org is the website. You're on Facebook. You're on Twitter.
I am pushing TESA. If you do fancy my work, you can find me at facebook.com/heedtheworld. I'm on Twitter, heedtheworld_RS. I have Instagram too, but Facebook's the best portal to go. You can see my individual work, my disclosure movement stuff. It depends on what you want. You'll see TESA through there anyways. Might as well follow everything. It depends on what you need. And that's another thing too. TESA is designed. We hit the tip of the iceberg of what TESA does. But there's something for everyone. When you go to the website, there's a flow chart. It just simply asks you 3 questions, or a question. Let me bring that up real quick. It's how do you identify? And the question, and you basically identify as either an experiencer or a witness.
Do you want to bring it up on the screen while you're talking about it so people can see a visual? Just hit share screen, and then I'll pop it in.
Okay, I can do that. Yeah. Perfect. Thanks. I didn't know I could do that. Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yep. Let me show it. There we go. And then I'll just make us smaller and that bigger. Okay.
Yeah, no worries. Perfect. So that's the website here. So tesacan.org. This is your quick guide to the website. How do you identify? If you're an experiencer or a witness, it's just going to basically say, what are you searching for? If you're looking for answers, go to the reporting system. Everything you need is here off to the side. If you're looking for support, if it's hidden, you go to EA, as we described. If you're looking for open support, you just go to social media events. If you're it depends on what you want to do. If you're an investigator or researcher, if you're looking for evidence, we've got data sets and reports. So all our data and everything that we're talking about is all here. We also do fraud reporting, by the way. If you happen to suspect someone of the nature that I'm worried about, report it. It's anonymous. Again, private investigating firm. We have jurisdiction to contact police agencies to have people arrested for fraud, just so you know. If you're looking for an assist, we also assist you with access to information or freedom of information requests. We know how to do that. We have it figured out, so you just have to let us know that what you're looking for, and then we'll assist you with that. And if it's something factual that we can use, we'll add that to our visual database. What else do we have? And if you're a professional partner, meaning you want to work with us, you can donate through the Patreon or the shop if you want some merchandise to represent, to support the movement, or if you want to be a partnership professional partner, you can apply to do that as well. And that is a request, by the way. A lot of people think that it should be given in this community. We're not looking for partners, but if you think that you would be a good fit, let us know that how, and then we'll start the conversation. How much time do we have? Because there's lots of info here I can zip through.
You're welcome to do a quick overview of everything that's available on the website, because I think it's an important resource.
Okay, well, thank you. I'll go real quick to let you know what's on every page then. So the ANU is the advisory. So my website's crap, obviously. What's going on here? It won't let me show. Yeah, there's some sort of a virus or something. I am going to switch browsers. 1 second. Okay. If that's okay.
Yeah, you're going to have to unshare your screen.
Just leave it there. What I'll do is I will bring another tab over. See?
Got it. Oh, you have dual monitors?
I sure do.
Got it. Nice. Very cool.
Okay, so the ANU. Okay, there must be something going on with the website. That's so strange. Well, that's kind of crappy. Okay, so I'll have to fix this. So once I fix it, the ANU is the Advisory Navigational Unit. That page will explain who I am, who else is on the team. So there's Alex Mistretta, he's a cryptozoologist. We have Tim the Demon Guy Morrison, who's also a private investigator. He's also my general operations manager. Chantel Chauvin as well, my wife Priscilla. The IRIDU, which is the Evidence Review and Intellectual Development Unit. That's a group of private investigators and researchers that are responsible for reviewing the evidence at the end of the year. Not just myself, but a team. I'm always looking for people to add to that team with different disciplines. It's also the board that reviews investigators' evidence if they decide to submit it to be added to our data report. That's another thing too, is we're taking care of all these elements for you, so that all you have to do is do the work. And if you get the evidence, submit it to us, and we'll add it. We'll add it to the conversation and give you credit. You just got to get out there and get the evidence, boots on the ground. The reporting system, which it's not going to work, is it? Damn it. I don't know what that's all about. So the reporting system is there. Data and research, that'll bring you to the Academy, which is in development, but it's prepped to be launched by October, which is when we're going to have our event, which is called Interconnected, which is actually a UFO and paranormal retreat. It's here in Canada, in Ontario, October 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. We're currently trying to figure out how to do a hybrid model where we could have virtual attendees as well, as well as physical attendees, but the focus of that event is around Canadian disclosure, Canadian stuff, but at the same time, we're going to have experiments in place where we can actually try to contact UFO and try to contact paranormal activity for scientific research. Mm-hmm. So that it's going to be an event, an expo, a conference like anything else, except we're going to use you guys as witness to try and manipulate the phenomenon. So you can get all this stuff by subscribing to the newsletter. The data sets and reports, that's basically all the things that I was talking about earlier. It's all there for your review. It's designed for anyone to compare their work to ours. If you need more information, you can do a Freedom of Information request to us, and we'll share what we can with you if we get permission from the experiencer. It's available to you. Field work, once COVID is done, we do plan on doing a couple in-field work events where we can teach the public how we do it so they can learn how they can do it themselves. And the reason why we're trying to teach everybody to do it themselves is because they're the ones reporting, right? We don't really need to create UFO groups. There's a whole bunch of them, or paranormal groups. There's a whole bunch of them. We want them to take their best evidence and share it with us so we can enhance it. But it's the people reporting that we need to teach because they're the front line. They're the ones right in front of it. Submit your work. So that's, again, through Project Babel. The database, which I really wanted to show you, but it's basically a map of our unidentified cases from 2019, which the 2020 ones will be added to it, as well as some of the other independent cases that I've been collecting. So you basically see this map, you click on it, it brings you to the witness statement, which has the visuals. And if you're an investigator, you just simply scan through the visuals until you see something that looks like what you're looking for. Nobody has time to read all these papers. We'll read them, and what we're going to do is condense them to the visuals so that way you can come here as a quick resource and find what you need and carry on. The model is essentially based off of a police department, like a wanted by TESA. If I could show you this is the pictures of evidence of extraterrestrials that are accused or alleged of doing crimes such as kidnapping, abduction, rape, causing a disturbance. Like if these things actually exist and they're humanoid, there's criminal charges that should be, that are outstanding. So there's that element too that we have available on our website. If you go to workshops, that'll bring you to Experiencers Anonymous. So that's where you'll find that. Social media just basically brings you to everything. YouTube, all that stuff, podcast network, that'll bring all the podcasts up. And then Eventbrite, that'll bring you to everything too. Shop, volunteer, and partnership. So that's pretty well everything in a nutshell. I'm really sorry. I don't know why my website's not working.
Huge resource for anybody that's interested in this topic. I hope you get it fixed soon because, if people start to go to it
right now, I'd be doing it right now. Yeah, that's kind of strange. I didn't know that it was doing that.
So, well, it's good that we found out, you know.
Yeah.
So with that, I think we could call it a night. I mean, it's been a great presentation. Everything that you were talking about is interesting, and I think you're doing good work, man. Keep doing it, okay?
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for what you're doing, and for the opportunity to share that message on your audience. And I really look forward to talking to you more about these connections that you've suggested, because if that helps, I might as well look through and see. And I'll thank you in advance if anything good comes out of that. And I hope that, I don't know, we can help you in any way, shape, or form. So you just let me know what you need, man.
Sounds
We're here.
good. All right, Ryan. Well, with that, have a good night, and
You too.
I'll talk to you